Excluded from New Year's for being a contractor, I cut off my sister's law school funds. She lost her boyfriend, her future, and now she's working as a paralegal while I'm expanding my business and drinking with her ex. Nobody expects to be disinvited from their own family's holiday, but I guess there's a first time for everything. My name is Isaac. I'm 32 years old, living in Charleston, South Carolina. I own a tile and masonry business that I built from scratch. Good money, honest work. I've been doing it since I was 19. My hands aren't soft, and I don't wear a suit, but I take care of myself and my family. Or at least I used to. It happened a week before New Year's Eve. I was wrapping up work on a patio installation when my phone buzzed. Mom. I wiped the mortar dust off my hands and answered, expecting our usual call about food and who's bringing what. Hey, sweetie, she said, her voice soft, like she was about to ask for a favor. So, listen. About New Year's. I laughed. Let me guess. You want me to bring the crab dip again? Silence. Then she sighed. Actually, this year, we've decided to keep it kind of small. You know, just some of the immediate family and, well, keep the ambience polished. I paused. What does that mean? It's just, with how things are changing, your sister's new relationship, the new people she's introducing, and the way the event's being planned, it's more of a formal setting. I blinked. So I'm not invited? Isaac, she said quickly, please don't take it the wrong way. It's about the image, the vibe. We're trying something different this year. Just once. I sat down on the back of my pickup. My boots scraped against the steel bumper. So let me get this straight. Because I run a masonry business and don't wear a button down, I don't fit the ambience. She hesitated. It's not that. It's complicated. Who decided this? Sweetheart, don't make this into a thing. But I was already making it a thing. Later that night, my cousin Kara called. She always had a hard time keeping secrets. She's dating some guy named David, she told me. His dad's some big-shot finance guy. They're trying to impress his family, and Samantha doesn't want anything rough around the edges at the party. Her words, not mine. I didn't say anything. She also called you a construction man. Said it like a slur. That's when my stomach turned. I've been paying Samantha's tuition for law school every damn semester since she got in. Rent too, some months. I never told anyone. Just wanted to help. She said, and I'm quoting, Kara whispered, I love Isaac, but he's an optics risk. David's parents are conservative about appearances. I can't have someone in dusty work boots hanging around a champagne reception. I didn't speak for a long time. Kara finally said, I'm sorry. I thought you deserved to know. I ended the call and stared at my hands. Cracked, calloused. The kind of hands that paid her bills, bought her textbooks, and kept her from drowning in student loans. I wasn't good enough to be seen, but I was good enough to bankroll the image she wanted. That's when I made a quiet decision. This wasn't going to end with a sad shrug and me staying home. Not this time. For a couple of days after that phone call, I didn't do much talking. I just worked. Kept my head down, laid tile, set stone. My hands stayed busy, but my mind wouldn't shut up. I kept replaying everything Samantha ever said to me. And what she didn't say. I started looking back, trying to piece together the pattern I had ignored for years. There was the graduation party last spring. I showed up late because I had a job run long, still wearing my work clothes. Samantha barely acknowledged me, shuffled me off to the side with the caterers. I figured she was just stressed. Now I wondered if I was always meant to blend into the background. Then the time I tagged her in a picture on Instagram, us at a family cookout, her laughing with a drink in her hand, me behind the grill. She asked me to take it down. It doesn't match my aesthetic, she'd said. I laughed at the time. Thought she was just being silly. Turns out she was serious. I dug through my messages with her. I hadn't even noticed until then. Most of them were transactional. Bank transfers. Tuition reminders. Hey, do you mind covering rent this month, just until my stipend comes in? That kind of thing. Not once had she invited me to anything that involved her friends. Not once had she posted a photo of us together. Not even on birthdays. I was her brother, but only behind closed doors. In public, I was invisible. It got worse when Kara sent me screenshots from the family group chat. I wasn't in it, of course. She'd written, I just don't want David's parents thinking I'm from some blue-collar mess. Isaac's sweet, but he's got that whole, rustic vibe. It's not great optics when you're trying to land an internship at a white shoe firm. A white shoe firm. Like she was trying out for a country club, and I was the groundskeeper she had to keep out of sight. I stared at the words for a long time. Rustic. Optics. Blue-collar mess. And then I scrolled further. Another message said, he's paying for law school, but that doesn't mean I have to parade him around. Image matters. My future depends on this. That's when I felt it in my gut. This wasn't just Samantha. It wasn't just her. Because Mom had gone along with it. Dad hadn't called me either, not even to pretend things were fine. Not a single relative in that group chat had stood up for me. Some had even liked the message. A couple had laughed. It wasn't just that I was being erased. It was that they all helped make me disappear. They took the money. They took the favors. But they wouldn't be caught dead standing beside me in a photo. I closed the screenshots and put my phone down. That's when something shifted in me. Not rage. Not even sadness. Just clarity. I wasn't family to them. I was a utility. And I've been letting it happen for far too long. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the student loan account Samantha had set up under my name. Not because I asked her to, because it was convenient for her. I'd been handling the payments every term since her first semester. She even joked once that I was basically her bursar. The spring semester payment was coming due in 2 weeks. $19,700. I stared at the number for a while. Let it sit there. I could have paid it right then and there, like I always did. One click. That's all it would have taken. But I didn't. Instead, I logged out. No angry texts. No confrontation. Not yet. If Samantha wanted to play politics, I was going to give her the one thing lawyers fear most, controlled silence. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to make a point. Over the next few days, I started feeling out the family. Little check-ins. Casual phone calls. Nothing direct. Just me seeing who might actually stand up if the tide turned. Kara? She was with me from the jump. She's been using you, she said bluntly. You know that, right? Samantha's always been strategic with people. Even when we were kids. I called Aunt Denise. The one who used to gush about family loyalty every time she needed help moving or wanted free labor fixing her back porch. Oh, honey, she said when I brought up New Year's. That's between you and your sister. Don't drag the rest of us into it. Drag the rest of us into it. I remembered she still owed me $1,200 from last spring when I helped with her kitchen remodel. I hadn't brought it up since. Maybe I should have. My cousin Rick ghosted me after I mentioned Samantha's little group chat quotes. I guess optics were contagious. The more I called, the more I saw it. Nobody wanted to take sides. Which meant they already had. By the end of the week, I had my answer. This wasn't just about my sister being a snob. This was about the whole family quietly buying into the idea that I was less than, even while my money kept everything afloat. And if they were fine letting me pay like I mattered, while treating me like I didn't, then it was time for them to find out what it felt like when the bank closed. The silence wasn't going to last much longer. But when I made my move, it was going to land hard and permanent. It was a Thursday afternoon when I finally called Samantha. I waited until I knew she'd be between classes. She always picked up when she thought it had to do with money. Hey, big bro, she answered, all light and casual, like we hadn't skipped a holiday over her pretending I didn't exist. Hey, I said. You got a minute? Of course, she chirped. Everything okay? I was just about to text you about the tuition. Spring term's almost due. But I figured you already handled it like usual. Her voice had that sugarcoating I was used to. Polished, rehearsed, pleasant. I could almost hear her flipping through the mental script she used when she needed something. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the shop window. One of my guys was hosing down a truck in the lot, laughing with a client. Yeah, I said slowly. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. She paused. Okay. I'm not paying it. Silence. What? The tuition, I said again, calm as ever. I won't be covering it this semester. Her laugh was nervous, high-pitched. Wait, are you joking? No, I said. Not even a little. There was another beat of silence. Then her voice dropped a notch, a little more serious. Isaac, you can't just decide that last minute. My classes are already registered. I've got housing, books, plans. You made your choices, I said. Now I'm making mine. She went quiet. Then, like clockwork, she switched gears. Is this about New Year's? She asked, sounding half amused, half annoyed. Isaac, come on. That was nothing. It wasn't personal. It was just logistics. Logistics, I repeated, flat. You called me an optics risk in a group chat. Wait, what? Kara sent me the screenshots. Silence again. I've spent over $65,000 on your education so far. I continued, my voice steady. Paid your rent twice. Covered your car repairs. Never asked for anything back. Isaac, listen. No, I cut in. You listen. I wasn't good enough to be seen at a family dinner. But somehow I'm good enough to wire 19 grand so you can keep pretending you don't know where the money comes from. She started to cry then. I could hear it in the hitch of her voice. I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to fit in. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I understand perfectly, I said. You wanted the kind of life where you could talk about your law school ambitions at wine mixers without having to explain your brother lays tile for a living. I get it. Please, she whispered. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You did this. You decided appearances mattered more than the people who actually show up for you. If I'm too embarrassing for dinner, then my money's too embarrassing for law school. She was full on crying now. I can't pay for it myself. Then I guess you'll have to get real comfortable with what the rest of us do. Figure it out. I didn't wait for a response. I ended the call, set my phone down, and exhaled slow. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. Not really. It was relief. I'd finally stopped mistaking obligation for love. The fallout started fast. First it was Mom. She called that same evening, twice in a row. I didn't answer the first time, but on the second call, I picked up. I knew she wouldn't stop until she got her say. Isaac, she started, already teary. What is going on? Samantha's heartbroken. She said you're refusing to help with her tuition. After everything she's been through. I let out a short breath. You mean after she told people I'm a PR liability? There was a pause. Then, softly, she didn't mean it like that. She meant it exactly like that, I said. You just don't want to admit you agreed with her. That's not true, she snapped, a little of the real voice coming through. We were just trying to make things nice for everyone. It was a delicate situation. You're taking this too far. I laughed bitterly. Too far? You uninvited me to a family holiday because I make my living with my hands. Then you all stood by while Samantha erased me from her life, but kept cashing my checks. We thought you understood, she said. She's under so much pressure with law school, with David's family. She just needed support. I was her support, I cut in. 65 grand worth of it. She tried to redirect. Okay, I'm not saying she handled it perfectly, but this is family. You don't just cut people off. I hung up. The next day, Dad called. He didn't do guilt trips, he did guilt stabs. You're being selfish, he said bluntly. What kind of man turns his back on his sister over a misunderstanding? It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. It was a campaign. He scoffed. You always play the victim. She's trying to make something of herself, and you're throwing a tantrum because she didn't want you at a party. No, I said calmly. I'm cutting her off because she used me and made it clear I'm just a tool to her. You can dress that up however you want, but that's what happened. He didn't respond. Just muttered something about blood being thicker before hanging up. Then came the texts. A flood of them. Aunt Denise, family helps family. You should know better. Uncle Rob, we all make mistakes. Doesn't mean you take it out on your own blood. Cousin Rick, this is petty. Be the bigger person. Nobody offered to pitch in, of course. Just wanted me to swallow it and keep paying. I replied to one message. That was it. Aunt Denise, still waiting on the $1,200 you owe me. Feel free to apply that towards Samantha's tuition if you're so concerned. She didn't respond. By the end of the weekend, I'd blocked 5 numbers and set my phone to do not disturb. Funny how fast family first turns into you're selfish the moment you stop being useful. But I wasn't about to go back. They could have their polished dinners. I was done polishing over the truth. A few days after the phone call, I heard from Kara again. She always had the family scoop, whether she wanted it or not. Guess who had a meltdown? She said over the phone, barely hiding the glee in her voice. Your sister told David about the tuition stuff. I leaned against the back of my truck, sipping coffee from a thermos. Let me guess. She left out the part where she called me an optics risk. Bingo, Kara said. Try to play the whole my brother's being cruel and abandoning me right before finals card. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Kara wasn't done. David started asking questions. Like, why hasn't he ever met you? Why she never mentioned how law school was being paid for? She dodged at first, but David's no idiot. I smirked. Did she tell him I'm a contractor? Or did she say I'm a rustic embarrassment? She admitted the truth eventually. And guess what? Turns out David's uncle owns a luxury home building company. He started in masonry, just like you. That made me pause. Seriously? Yep, Kara said. David grew up around guys like you. He respects hard work. Blue collar, hands-on, family-run business, that kind of thing. I felt something twist in my chest. Not pain, exactly. More like bitter irony. So what did he say? He said her values didn't line up with his. That he wasn't interested in someone who hides people just because they don't fit her image. He broke up with her 2 nights ago. There was a long silence on the line. I exhaled slowly. She built her whole plan around this guy. Yup. And now it's crumbling. Fast. I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. I didn't say serves her right, even though I probably could have. All I said was, huh. Because deep down, I already knew. You can only stand on someone else's back for so long before they move out from under you. Samantha thought she could sculpt her life out of curated perfection and buried truths. She forgot that real foundations are made of things like loyalty, honesty, and sometimes even brick and stone. And now she was watching hers crack apart. It was a Friday afternoon when Samantha showed up at my business. I had just finished with a client and was in the front office going over some invoices when the glass door slammed open so hard the chime nearly fell off. I looked up, and there she was. Mascara running. Face flushed. Hair pulled into some messy twists like she tried to look presentable and gave up halfway through. Isaac, she snapped, striding past 2 confused customers and straight up to the counter. We need to talk. Now. Behind her, the crew out in the shop bay looked up from their stations. My receptionist froze halfway through typing something. Everyone could hear the way she said it, tight, furious, like she was here to make a scene. I didn't move. I just looked at her. You want to talk? Make an appointment. I'm serious, she hissed. You've ruined everything. Do you even get that? Do you have any idea what you've done to me? A man in his 60s, one of our regulars, Mr. Watkins, stood from the waiting chairs, watching carefully. I saw him cross his arms. You embarrassed me, Samantha continued. David broke up with me. His family won't take my calls. I'm being ghosted by internship recruiters who probably caught wind of the drama. You completely sabotaged my future. No, I said calmly. You sabotaged it yourself. I just stopped funding the fantasy. She banged her hand on the counter. You're my brother. You're supposed to support me. I did, I replied, my voice still even, to the tune of $65,000. You supported me with fake smiles and silence. I supported you with rent, tuition, books, groceries, and gas money. You're a narcissist, she snapped. This is all about control for you. Before I could reply, Mr. Watkins stepped forward. Miss, he said, voice rough from decades of cigarettes and honesty, you might want to lower your voice. This is a good man here. Helped me when my car died on Christmas Eve. Didn't charge me a cent. Samantha blinked at him like he'd spoken in another language. And for what it's worth, he added, turning to me, you don't owe anyone here an explanation. Especially not her. I nodded. Thanks, Mr. Watkins. But Samantha wasn't done. She jabbed her finger toward me. This is what you do, right? Just lay bricks all day and pretend it's noble. That was the moment Rick, my senior foreman, walked in from the garage. He'd been with me for 9 years. He wiped his hands on his jeans and looked her dead in the eye. Lady, I've watched this man work 12-hour shifts through a hurricane. I've watched him give jobs to guys who'd just gotten out of prison. He's helped families, rebuilt homes, and paid every one of us on time, every single week. So you don't get to walk in here and throw shade because your law school castle just crumbled. Samantha's lip trembled. This place, Rick said, stepping forward, this crew, this job, this isn't beneath anyone. Least of all the guy who paid your way while you pretended he didn't exist. She looked around. Everyone was watching her now. No one said a word. The last mask on her face slipped. Without saying anything, she turned on her heel and stormed out the front door, slamming it behind her. A minute passed before anyone spoke. Then Rick muttered, ungrateful little snob, and walked back to the garage. Mr. Watkins sat back down and picked up a magazine. And I just went back to work. Because in my world, we don't throw tantrums, we build. I didn't expect Samantha to go quietly, and I was right. It started 2 days after the office blow-up. Kara texted me a screenshot from Samantha's Instagram story, just white text on a black background. Funny how the people who claim to love you the most are the first to destroy everything you've built. Never rely on anyone who resents your success. She didn't tag me, of course. Would have taken too much backbone. But the comments were full of the usual suspects, our cousins, a few of her sorority friends, and the kind of people who love a one-sided story. You deserve better, girl. Some people just can't handle seeing others rise. Jealousy is so ugly. Kara sent a follow-up text. She's telling people you sabotaged her future because you're bitter she's in law school. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to play the social media war game. Instead, I watched from a distance as the story unraveled. No one stepped up to pay her tuition. Plenty of family had opinions about how I should have handled things privately, about how I was too harsh, but not one of them opened their wallets. Not even the ones who said she deserved another chance. David stayed quiet. I figured that silence was its own kind of statement. Aunt Denise posted a vague status on Facebook about remembering who helped you up, not who kicked you when you fell. She still hadn't paid me back that $1,200. Over the next week, I heard from 2 different relatives in private. One texted, I don't blame you. You did more than most brothers ever would. Another wrote, honestly, I admire the boundary. I wish I had the guts to do the same with my own siblings. But when it came time to say those things out loud, they stayed silent. Cowards in the group chat, cheerleaders in my DMs. Still, the tide was shifting. People started asking questions. Why would Samantha hide the fact that her brother funded her education? Why act like he didn't exist? The more she tried to spin it, the worse it looked. Because no matter how many filtered photos she posted of iced lattes and library selfies, the truth always leaked through. Turns out it's hard to keep up appearances when the foundation cracks. And she was learning that the hard way. I thought things had hit rock bottom after the social media stunt, but Samantha still had one more Hail Mary left in her. Kara called me on a Wednesday morning, her voice low. You're not going to believe what she did now. I was in the truck heading to a job site. Try me. She showed up at David's parents' house. Like, uninvited. Just rang the doorbell. I pulled into a gas station and parked. What the hell for? Apparently to ask for help with tuition. Said she was in a financial crisis and thought they might be willing to invest in her future. I couldn't help it. I laughed. She really thought they'd write her a check? Kara was quiet for a second. Nope. Instead, David and his dad set her down. Full-on intervention mode. I leaned back in my seat, listening. David told her he'd pieced together the real story, Kara continued. He had already spoken to a few mutual friends, and then apparently he called your shop, talked to someone named Rick. Wanted to get a sense of the kind of guy you are. My stomach twisted, but not in a bad way. What did Rick say? Rick told him you're the guy who pays employees out of pocket if a job gets delayed. The kind who buys groceries for clients who can't afford both a repair and dinner. I didn't say anything, just stared out at the fuel pumps. David's dad told Samantha she showed poor judgment, that a future lawyer should know better than to manipulate people with half-truths. He even said, integrity is your resume. That sounds like something he'd say, I muttered. They sent her home. No check. No sympathy. Just told her she needed to take a hard look at who she's becoming. A few days later, the news made its way through the family. Samantha had dropped out of law school. No more money, no cosigners, no plan B. She took a junior assistant job at some local firm in Charlotte. Told people it was just temporary while she explored new directions. But I knew the ride was over. Not because she couldn't come back from it, but because the mask had finally slipped for good. There was no curated story left. No internship, no fiancé, no borrowed brilliance. Just Samantha, exactly as she was, standing in the fallout of the image she built. And I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. A few months passed. Winter turned to spring, and with it came a quiet I hadn't felt in years. The shop was busier than ever. I hired 2 more guys and bought a second work truck with custom racks. We started picking up contracts from some of the higher-end builders in Charleston, the kind of clients who used to wrinkle their noses when I showed up in muddy boots. Now they were asking for me by name. Funny how that works. I'd see David every now and then. We weren't best friends or anything, but we'd grab a drink after work, talk shop. He introduced me to his uncle, the luxury home builder. Guy's been in the trades 30 years, built estates from Georgia to the Keys. We hit it off immediately. People think the foundation is the boring part, his uncle said once. But that's where the entire house earns its right to stand. I never forgot that line. As for my parents, they tried circling back around Easter. First it was a card in the mail, no return address, but I recognized my mom's handwriting. Just a generic, thinking of you, and a photo of the grandkids. Then a voicemail from Dad a few days later. Your mother and I were wondering if we could talk. Maybe come by for dinner. Also, we're looking at refinancing the house and, well, there's a lot going on. There it was. The real reason. I never called back. Kara kept me posted on family things. Birthdays. Birth announcements. Gossip. I appreciated the updates, even if I rarely replied. I wasn't mad anymore. Just done trying to reinsert myself where I wasn't wanted until my bank account became relevant. The weight that used to sit on my chest, the constant need to prove that I belonged, that I wasn't just the dirty hands brother, was gone. I started waking up earlier. Not for work, but because I wanted to. I'd make coffee slow, not rushed. I'd sit outside and listen to the birds, just breathing. I wasn't trying to be anything but who I was, a man who worked with his hands, built things that lasted, and finally understood that self-worth doesn't come from being needed, it comes from being respected. I wasn't invited to last New Year's Eve, but as the next one rolled around, I planned a different kind of gathering. Just a handful of people, my crew, their families, Mr. Watkins, David, and his uncle, Kara. We grilled steaks in the shop's back lot, cracked beers, told stories around a fire pit made from leftover stone from an old job. No dress code. No RSVP. No fake smiles. Just real people. Real warmth. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged.